My name is Brad, and I'm 31 years old. I run a plumbing business, a trade I learned from my uncle, who treated me like a son. He passed his small shop down to me, and I've since grown it from 2 employees to 8. I met Monica at a barbecue 3 years ago. She worked in corporate marketing, spoke in buzzwords I barely understood, but had a confidence that drew me in. Despite our different worlds, we connected over horror movies, late-night ice cream runs, and kayaking trips. Our relationship started strong, but over time, small things nagged at me. Her friends were polished professionals, and I often felt out of place at her work events. She'd subtly steer conversations away when I talked about my job, never outright insulting me, but making it clear she preferred to keep that part of my life in the background. I ignored the signs, believing our love mattered more. 2 years in, I proposed, and she said yes without hesitation. I thought we had something solid, but everything unraveled at her company's holiday party. It was a big night for her, and she insisted I be there. I had no idea how much that decision would change everything. The night of the holiday party, I put on my only suit, reserved for weddings and funerals. Monica dazzled in a shimmering blue dress as we arrived at her office, transformed into a holiday wonderland. "Brad, stick with me, okay? I don't want you getting lost," she said. "Don't worry, I'll be your shadow." Inside, waiters weaved through the crowd with champagne trays. I grabbed a sparkling water while Monica, already on her first glass of wine, introduced me to colleagues. There was Alexa, commanding the DJ, and Dylan, a sharply dressed guy with a firm handshake. "So, how do you two know each other?" Dylan asked. Monica flashed her ring. "Brad is my fiancé," she said proudly, warming my heart. For a while, things felt good. Then Rohan approached. "Monica, you promised to introduce us to your famous fiancé," he joked. "We've heard you can fix anything." I chuckled. "I do my best." A woman asked, "What's your line of work?" Before I could answer, Monica, now on her second or third drink, giggled. "Oh, he's my personal plumber," she teased. A few people laughed. Then she added, "And if anyone's toilet backs up tonight, I've got you covered." I forced a grin. I was used to jokes, but something about her tone felt off, like I was a novelty, not her partner. At dinner, she introduced me to more colleagues near the stage, where her boss was giving a speech. The conversation shifted to my plumbing business. "So, Brad, how does a plumber find time to date a corporate star like Monica?" someone asked. "I own my shop so I can manage my schedule," I said. Monica, now louder, cut in. "Yeah, but that means he spends his days up to his elbows in, well, not so pleasant stuff." She smirked. "At least he showers before coming home." Laughter rippled across the table. My face burned, but I stayed quiet, telling myself she was just tipsy. Still, the knot in my stomach tightened. She wasn't introducing me as her partner. She was making me a punchline. After dinner, Monica's boss, Naomi, took the stage for the official toast. She praised the team's hard work and highlighted a few rising stars, including Monica, for their dedication and creativity. Monica, thrilled at the recognition, leaned over and whispered, "I might get that promotion next quarter. Can you believe it?" I mustered a smile. "That's great, Monica," I said. "I'm proud of you." She squeezed my hand, then turned her attention back to the stage. As the music softened, Naomi began calling each team member up to say a few words. When it was Monica's turn, I gave her a supportive nudge. She walked confidently to the microphone, champagne glass in hand. "Thank you, Naomi," Monica began, her voice echoing through the hall. "This recognition means so much. Our team worked tirelessly to make this campaign a success." She paused as applause filled the room. "I also want to thank a special person in my life, my fiancé, Brad." She waved for me to stand. I stood, feeling a bit awkward but offering a polite smile. "Everyone, that's my plumber fiancé," Monica said, laughing lightly. Several pairs of eyes turned my way. "If your sink or toilet is ever in trouble, he's the guy. Don't worry, he's not too expensive." The crowd chuckled, but this time the laughter felt heavier, her tone laced with something sharper. She giggled, sipping her champagne, clearly enjoying the moment. A co-worker in the front row called out, "Hey, Brad, you offering a company discount?" More laughter followed. Monica beamed at the reaction. "He might, but no freebies," she joked. "We gotta pay those bills, right, honey?" I forced a hollow grin, my chest tightening. This was supposed to be her moment, a night to celebrate her success, not an opportunity to turn my work into a punchline. When her speech ended, the applause was polite but scattered, the joke lingering longer than the recognition she'd earned. As she returned to her seat, giggling and flushed with excitement, I leaned in and whispered, "What was that about?" She shrugged. "Relax, Brad. Don't be so serious. It's all in good fun." I swallowed hard. It didn't feel like fun. She waved me off, already turning to talk to a colleague. I stared at my untouched drink, the sting of humiliation tightening in my chest. As the music picked up again and the party resumed, Monica reached for another glass of champagne. I got up from the table and headed for the exit. I needed air. Anything to escape the noise and the sinking feeling that something between us had shifted. I stepped into the cold night, inhaling deep breaths to clear my mind. For a few minutes, I just breathed. My mind raced with questions. How did we get here? Why would Monica humiliate me like that in front of her entire company? I heard the click of high heels against the pavement. She was coming after me. A moment later, Monica's voice broke the silence. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked, sounding more annoyed than concerned. I turned to face her. She was still holding her champagne flute. "No, I'm not okay," I answered, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Monica, you just ridiculed my job in front of everyone. They were laughing at me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, Brad, lighten up. They weren't laughing at you, they were laughing with you." I let out a frustrated breath. "That's the thing, they weren't laughing with me. You basically turned me into a joke. It's like I'm just some clown you bring around for entertainment." Her cheeks were flushed, partly from the alcohol. "You're overreacting. I was just joking around. People do that at parties all the time." I shook my head. "Not like that. Not by making fun of someone's job. You made it sound like being a plumber is beneath you, beneath everyone here." She looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. "You're being dramatic," she insisted. "I've always respected what you do, but you have to admit, it's not exactly glamorous. I just made a little joke because it's so different from my world." I folded my arms. "You respect what I do? You think it's cute or something. But whenever we're around your colleagues, you use my work as a punchline. This goes beyond tonight." She glanced back toward the door, suddenly worried someone might overhear. "Brad, can we please not do this here? It's my company party. Let's go inside, have another drink, and talk about it tomorrow." A surge of anger burned through me. "No, Monica, I'm done brushing this aside." Her tone shifted, growing colder. "What do you mean you're done?" I took a second to steady myself, searching her eyes for any hint of genuine remorse. "I mean," I said slowly, "I can't marry someone who sees me as a joke." She laughed nervously, a shaky sound. "Are you seriously talking about calling off our engagement over a silly toast?" I looked down at my hand and fumbled with the engagement ring. My hand trembled slightly as I slid it off my finger. We'd decided to wear matching simple bands during the engagement. I stared at the ring for a moment, remembering the day I proposed. Her eyes flickered with alarm. "Brad, don't you dare," she warned. I held out the ring. "If you can't respect me, truly respect me, then we can't do this. I won't spend my life defending my career to the person who's supposed to love me." Monica's mouth fell open. "Oh my God," she muttered, stepping back in disbelief. "You're actually serious? Over a couple of jokes?" "They weren't jokes," I snapped. "They were insults. You humiliated me in front of your entire office, and you're too drunk or too proud to admit it." At that, her anger ignited. "You want me to beg for forgiveness for telling a joke? Grow up, Brad. People poke fun at each other's careers all the time. I never complained about the grease smell on your clothes, did I? Or the times you come home exhausted and filthy?" I swallowed, hurt surging through me. "You see what you're doing? You're doubling down. No apology, just more put-downs." "Fine, I'm not sorry, and I refuse to stand here in the cold while you act like the victim." I gazed at her, suddenly feeling like we were worlds apart. The woman I loved, thought I loved, was nowhere in sight. Only this mocking, dismissive person stood in front of me. "Then this is it," I said softly. She let out a harsh laugh, the sound echoing in the night. "I can't believe you're walking away just because you couldn't handle a light-hearted roast." I gently placed the ring in her hand. "I'm walking away because I deserve someone who's proud of me." With that, I turned around and headed back inside, determined to grab my coat and leave this nightmare behind me. The moment I stepped back into the party, A hush seemed to fall. Maybe people had overheard snippets of our argument, or maybe they just sensed the tension. I grabbed my coat, keeping my composure. Before I could leave, Monica rushed in after me, clutching the engagement ring, her face flushed with anger and frustration. "Don't do this here," she hissed. "You're making a scene." I glanced around. Dylan was whispering to someone, and Naomi, her boss, looked concerned. But I was past caring. "I'm not the one who made a scene," I said, my voice steady. "I tried to talk to you in private. You dismissed me." She reached for my arm, but I pulled away. "Brad, please, let's talk when we're both sober." I met her gaze, my heart heavy. "It's too late, Monica." Then I turned and walked out the door. The drive home was long and silent, my phone buzzing with her texts. "Let's talk." "You're overreacting." "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. If she couldn't respect me in public, what kind of partnership did we really have? By morning, she was still in the house, but the tension between us was unbearable. I could feel her eyes on me as I got ready for work, but I had nothing left to say. Later that day, she started spinning her version of events, telling mutual friends I threw a tantrum over a harmless joke. Some people bought her story, others asked for my side. I kept it simple. It wasn't just one joke, it was a pattern of disrespect. Some understood, others didn't. One message from an acquaintance read, "Dude, if you're that sensitive about plumbing jokes, maybe you should find a less mockable job." That stung, but it also reminded me exactly why I walked away. That night I told Monica to pack her things. The house was mine. I had bought it before we met. She protested, trying to downplay everything, but I wasn't interested in another argument. By the next morning she was gone. She moved back in with her parents. Days later, Monica's version of events popped up on social media. When a man can't handle your success or humor, you see his true colors. She painted me as insecure, controlling, and unable to handle her personality. I didn't take the bait. But I did talk to people who actually mattered, like my cousin Todd, who'd known me forever. "She's flipping the script," he said. "You've never been insecure about your work. She just can't admit she messed up." Then karma struck. A few days after she moved back to her parents' house, their bathroom pipes burst. Badly. The flooding ruined the floors and seeped into the walls. A mutual friend later told me they had to shell out thousands for repairs. For the first time, Monica probably understood. My job wasn't just a trade, it wasn't a joke, it was necessary. She never reached out again, and I never heard an apology. I focused on what mattered, my business. I expanded my crew, took on more clients, and trained new apprentices. Months passed. Monica moved to another department, trying to outrun the embarrassment. Rumors said she was dating someone from her office. I didn't ask for details. My life was moving forward. One late afternoon, after finishing a tough pipe replacement at a historic building, I sat in my truck, watching the sunset reflect on my business's new logo. A wave of gratitude washed over me. I won't lie. Sometimes I missed the good parts of Monica, her adventurous spirit, the way she'd lean on my shoulder during a scary movie. But I never missed feeling small. Eventually, I started dating again. This time I found someone different. Someone who respected me, who didn't see my job as something to laugh about, but as something to admire. She loved that I worked with my hands, that I built something real. She was proud of me, and that made all the difference. If anyone asked me for relationship advice after that, I had one answer. Look at how your partner speaks about you in public. Do they uplift you, or do they make you the butt of their jokes? Respect is non-negotiable. Thank you for watching. It all started when Victoria, my fiancée, went on a week-long trip to Europe with her college friends. It was an organized group tour, sightseeing, fancy dinners, the whole package. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I trusted her. We had been together for 4 years, and our wedding was just 6 months away. What could possibly go wrong? She called me every night, sent me pictures, told me she missed me. Everything seemed normal. But when she came back, something was different. She was happy, sure, but it was a different kind of happiness. Not the kind of happiness you get from coming home to your fiancé after a long trip. It was the kind of happiness people have when they're hiding something, when they've got a secret they don't want anyone to know. At first I ignored it. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But then the little things started stacking up. She became distant, always on her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't let me see. She started going out more, Suddenly she had plans every other night. One evening I casually asked, "Who are you texting?" She quickly locked her phone. "Just the girls." She said it so naturally, but something felt off. Then came the new habits with her phone. She would take it with her wherever she went in the house, even if it was just for a minute. I'd hear her laughing quietly like she was sharing a private joke. When she came back to bed, she'd quickly tuck the phone under her pillow, almost like she was hiding something precious. She also started dressing differently. More effort, tighter outfits, more makeup, just to grab coffee or meet the girls. I joked one time, "Damn, you look like you're going on a date." She laughed it off. "Just trying something new." I forced a smile, but inside, something gnawed at me. Then came the excuses. "Sorry, babe, I can't do dinner tonight. I already made plans. I'm just feeling overwhelmed. I need space. I'll be home late. Don't wait up." Victoria, the woman who used to text me nonstop, who used to light up whenever I walked into the room, now acted like I was a background character in her life. One night she came home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I stood by the door, arms crossed. "You smell different." She hesitated for just a second before forcing a laugh. "Probably from the bar. So many people around." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I could feel the distance growing between us, and deep down I knew something was seriously wrong. I decided to fix things between us. Maybe she was feeling neglected. Maybe she needed a reminder of what we had. So, one night, I took her to a nice restaurant downtown. Candlelight, wine, everything perfect. She smiled, but it felt forced, like she was playing a part. Halfway through dinner, I reached for her hand. "Victoria," I said gently, "are we okay?" She hesitated, just for a second. Then she smiled, a little too quickly. "Of course we are, Andrew. I'm just stressed." It was a lie, I felt it, but I let it slide. After dinner, we went for a walk. That's when we ran into her, Sophie, the barista from the coffee shop near my office. I grabbed coffee from there every morning, and Sophie and I had friendly conversations. She was fun, flirty, but I never entertained it. I was an engaged man, after all. "Hey, Andrew!" Sophie greeted me with a bright smile. "Hey," I said, already wanting to avoid the conversation. I gestured beside me. "This is my fiancée, Victoria." Then Sophie's eyes landed on her, and for a split second she froze. It was subtle, but I caught it. "Hi, Victoria. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Victoria said and gave a polite smile, then immediately squeezed my hand. "We should go." Sophie's expression shifted, like she wanted to say something, maybe needed to say something, but stopped herself. We said our goodbyes and walked away. That night, just as I was about to sleep, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hey, it's Sophie. I need to tell you something. It's important. Can we meet tomorrow?" I frowned. Why is Sophie texting me at this hour? And how did she get my number? I quickly typed back, "Why are you messaging me this late? Whatever it is, I'm engaged, and I don't want to be part of something inappropriate." "It's not about me," she wrote. "It's about Victoria. Trust me, you need to know this." My heart pounded. I stared at the message. What could she possibly know about Victoria that was so important? "Fine," I replied. "Where can we meet?" The next day we met at a small cafe. Sophie was already there, sitting at a corner table. She looked up as I approached, her face serious. I sat down across from her. "All right, what's this about?" She looked up at me, hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I saw Victoria 2 nights ago, at a bar." My stomach tightened. And? She wasn't alone. I felt my pulse in my ears. "What do you mean?" Sophie exhaled slowly, like she hated being the one to say it. "She was with a guy. They were close, laughing, hugging. Then they kissed." The words slammed into me. I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles turning white. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I didn't want to believe it at first, but after seeing her with you last night, acting like everything was fine, I knew I had to tell you." I just sat there, staring at the steam rising from my untouched coffee. My mind refused to process what I'd just heard. Victoria wouldn't do this, would she? I barely said anything after that. I thanked Sophie, though it felt like the words were just automatic. I stood up, feeling numb, and left the cafe without really looking back. My mind was racing, and I could barely process what she'd just told me. Everything felt distant, like I was moving through a fog. There was only one way to know for sure. I needed proof. That night, Victoria was in the shower. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, face down. My heart pounded in my chest. I had never gone through her phone before, never even thought about it. But now I had to know. I picked it up with shaking hands, swiped up, and of course it was locked. I glanced toward the bathroom. The water was still running. Then I remembered. I had seen her unlock it before. The passcode, her birth year, 1995. I typed it in and the phone unlocked. For a second I just stared at it, hoping, begging, that I'd find nothing, that Sophie was wrong, that I was just being paranoid. But as I opened her messages, my stomach dropped. There it was, a conversation with a number I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you again," he wrote. "Me too," Victoria responded. The date of their first message matched the week she left for Europe. I kept scrolling, my hands shaking harder with every message. Flirty texts, inside jokes, messages so intimate they made my skin crawl. Then pictures, him holding her, kissing her. "Wish I could lie next to you again," he wrote. "Soon, babe. Just a couple more days," Victoria replied. I felt my chest caving in. He was from the group Victoria went to Europe with, and apparently he lived in the next city, so he was frequently coming to visit her. They were still sneaking around. The shower turned off. I dropped the phone back onto the nightstand and jumped into bed just as the bathroom door opened. She walked in, towel wrapped around her body, drying her hair with another. "Hey, you okay? You look—" She trailed off, studying me. I forced a smile. "Just tired." She smiled back, leaned over and kissed my forehead. "Get some sleep, babe." Her lips felt like poison. I turned away from her, staring at the ceiling in the dark. My fiancé was cheating on me, and I had no idea. But now I did, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I needed more proof, not for me, but to show her that I wasn't just some paranoid, jealous fool. I had to know the full truth. 2 nights later, she told me she was going out with the girls. Her tone was casual, too casual, like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. I forced a smile and told her to have fun, even though everything inside me was screaming. I didn't follow her right away. I waited just long enough for her to think she'd gotten away with it. Then I slipped into my jacket, grabbed my keys, and quietly left the house. I kept a safe distance as I followed her car. She didn't head to any of her usual spots. No bars, no places she would go with her friends. Instead, I watched as she pulled into a dive hotel just outside of town. My stomach dropped when I saw him, tall, dark-haired, and wearing that smug grin, the kind you wear when you think you can get away with anything. I watched from a distance as they spotted each other. No hesitation. Victoria rushed toward him, her arms flying around his neck like they hadn't seen each other in years. He pulled her in tightly, like she was the only thing that mattered. And then they kissed, right there, in front of the hotel entrance. I snapped a few pictures. Each one felt like another piece of the truth falling into place, one I never wanted to see. They didn't even look around. They were too caught up in their own world, ignoring everything else. He kissed her again, more urgently this time, and I could see her melt into him, the way she used to melt into me. The way I thought she still would if she ever saw me again. I waited as they walked into the hotel. My pulse raced. Every step they took toward that door was a step deeper into the betrayal I couldn't avoid. I didn't need to see more, but I couldn't look away. They disappeared behind those double doors. I stood there outside, the cold biting at my skin, the weight of everything crashing down on me. My body felt like lead. She was in there, with him, doing all the things I thought were reserved for us. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was too numb to be angry. But as the minutes dragged on, something inside me snapped. My jaw tightened, and a cold fury spread through me. She had to know this wasn't just about her. It was about the trust she had shattered. The life we were supposed to build together, destroyed for some guy she met on a trip. The air felt thick around me like time itself had frozen. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples, the anger simmering just below the surface. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not like this. Not after everything. A few days later, we had a family gathering at our house. It was supposed to be a celebration. Everyone was there, her parents, my parents, our closest friends. It was the perfect setting, the kind of day where you'd expect to hear wedding plans and future dreams. Instead, I was about to turn everything upside down. I stood up, cleared my throat, and felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me. I could see Victoria in the corner of the room, laughing with her friends, her fake smile still fresh on her face. She didn't know what was coming. I pulled out my phone, my hands steady despite everything inside me twisting. I looked at her one last time before I spoke. I just want to say how much I love Victoria, how lucky I am to have her, and to show everyone I made a little slideshow. The room fell quiet. I connected my phone to the TV, the familiar click of the screen changing. No one suspected a thing. Then the pictures flashed up on the screen. Victoria, smiling with him. Her arms wrapped around his neck. The kind of smile she used to give me. The next photo showed them kissing. My chest tightened as I stared at the image, the room suddenly feeling heavier. Gasps filled the silence. Then came the last picture. Victoria, hand in hand with him, walking into the hotel. My stomach lurched as the room filled with whispers. Her mother's face went pale, her hand shooting up to cover her mouth. Her father's face turned crimson with rage. "Andrew, what the hell is this?" Victoria's voice cracked as she stood, her face draining of color. I met her eyes with a calmness I didn't even know I had. "This is you, Victoria. The real you. Not the woman I thought I was marrying." Her breath hitched, her eyes wide with panic. "I can explain," she began, her voice desperate. She took a step forward, reaching for me, but I took a step back, not giving her the chance to get close. "Don't. Just don't. There's nothing to explain." I shook my head, my voice flat, controlled. I turned to the room looking at her parents, our friends. "The wedding is off." My words were final, sharp. "And Victoria, pack your stuff. You're out of my house." Her sobs filled the room. She reached out again, but there was nothing left for her to hold on to. I didn't care anymore. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by the woman in those pictures. I turned and left the room. I knew, deep down, I would never look back. She packed her things and left that night. I didn't see her again. The days that followed were filled with desperate messages from Victoria. She begged, she cried, promising regret, change, and that it would never happen again. But it didn't matter. Her words were just noise, empty and hollow. I didn't respond. She had made her choice in Europe. I made mine that night. I could have tried to forgive, but I wasn't going to live a lie. She crossed a line, and that was it. I chose myself. Finally, I could breathe again. No more pretending, no more holding on to something that wasn't coming back. I let go of the emotions I'd wasted on her and threw them out with everything else she left behind. I didn't need closure or apologies. I needed peace. And I've never looked back. Not when she reached out months later, not when her friends tried to convince me to talk to her. Every memory I once cherished faded. The next few months I focused on rebuilding my life. I focused on myself, on healing. I slowly started moving forward, even gave Sophie a chance. She'd always flirted with me when I was engaged, but I took things slow. She respected that. And for the first time I felt like I wasn't chasing shadows. In the end, I learned the most important thing. You can't build a future with someone who doesn't stay true to you. I chose myself, and I was better for it. Thank you for watching. I was supposed to be getting married in 7 months. Natalie and I had been together for almost 4 years, engaged for 1. She was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, beautiful, funny. We had built a life together, a future. The wedding venue was booked, the invitations were printed, and we were counting down the days. But then, Vegas happened. Natalie and her girlfriends planned a trip to Las Vegas, just a little last hurrah before she became a married woman, or so she told me. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. I believed in us. She left on a Friday morning, and we both joked about how she should stay away from the slot machines or she'd never stop playing. We hugged at the airport, and she promised to call me when she landed. Little did I know that goodbye hug was going to be one of our last moments of real affection. The first day she was gone, everything seemed normal. She texted me a couple of times to say she had arrived and that she and her friends were heading to some dinner show. I told her to have fun and to send me a few pictures if she remembered. But the second day, things felt different. She was responding less to my messages, sometimes hours later, or not at all. I figured she was just busy having fun, so I didn't push it. But that night when I called her, she didn't pick up, not even a text back. That uneasy feeling in my gut started to grow. Then on Sunday morning I got a call from my friend, Eric. He lived in a city near mine, and we hadn't talked in a couple of weeks, so I was a little surprised to see his name pop up. But the moment I answered, I could tell something was off. His voice was tense, like he didn't want to be making this call. "Kevin," his voice was serious, almost hesitant. "I don't know how to say this, but I saw Natalie last night." I frowned, sitting up straighter. "What are you talking about? That's impossible. Natalie's in Vegas right now." "Yeah," he confirmed. My heart started pounding. "Wait, what? You're in Vegas too?" "Yeah, man. I came for a friend's bachelor party," he said. "And I saw her. She wasn't alone." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "What do you mean? Where did you see her?" Eric hesitated before saying, "At a club on the Strip. She was with some guy, and not just hanging out with him. She was all over him, holding hands, kissing." It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone tighter. "You're sure it was her?" "Dude," Eric said, "I know what your fiancée looks like. It was her." I couldn't speak. My mind was racing. "Kevin, listen," Eric continued. "If you don't believe me, I'll follow her. I'll take pictures." I exhaled sharply, my jaw tightening. "Do it." I told Eric which hotel she was staying at, and we ended the call. Then I tried to calm myself. I wanted to believe this was some kind of misunderstanding. About an hour later, Eric called me again. "Kevin," he said in a hushed voice, "I just spotted Natalie at the pool area of her hotel. She's with the same guy. I'll try to get some photos." I went quiet for a moment. My heart pounded, my hands shaking. Part of me didn't want to see any proof, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But I also knew I needed to know the truth. "Yeah, take them," I finally said. "Send me whatever you get." About 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Eric had sent the pictures. I opened them, and I froze. There she was, my Natalie, sitting on a lounge chair with a man, her hands all over him. In another picture, she was leaning in close, and in the next one, they were kissing. My heart cracked right then and there. A mix of numbness and fury flooded through me. It was undeniable. This wasn't some friend from work or a random moment. This was betrayal. I spent that night staring at those photos over and over, wishing they weren't real. Like somehow if I looked long enough, they'd turn into something else. But they never did. My fiancée was in Vegas, cheating on me with another man. Hours passed, filled with nothing but anger, disbelief, and the hollow ache of betrayal. And then finally, it hit me. It was over. There was no coming back from this. I had two choices: confront her and let her spin 1,000 lies, or end everything in a way she'd never forget. I chose the second option. The next morning, before I could lose my nerve, I canceled the wedding. I called the venue, informed them the wedding was off, and accepted that my deposit was likely gone forever. Next, I called the caterers and the photographer. I stopped by the church to tell them we wouldn't need the date anymore. And I did it all with a kind of cold determination. My voice was steady, but inside I felt like my entire world had crumbled. Then I called my family. "Mom, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but Natalie and we're not getting married anymore," I said, my tone empty. "What? Kevin, what happened?" my mom asked in disbelief. "She cheated on me," I replied simply. "I can't marry someone who would do that." My mom burst into tears. My dad took the phone next, telling me he supported whatever I decided. I told my brothers and my close cousins too, so that word would spread and people wouldn't be blindsided when the invitations were suddenly canceled. After that, I sat in silence for nearly an hour. Eventually, I took a deep breath and made my next call, to a locksmith. There was no way I was letting her step foot into my house again. Within an hour, the locks were changed. Her keys were now useless. Then I started packing. Every single thing of hers, her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, even the little decorative things she had placed around the house, Everything went into boxes. As I packed, I felt the weight of what had happened settle over me. This was real. She was gone, and I was making sure she stayed that way. But there was one box that was different from the rest. I had printed the photos that Eric sent me, the undeniable proof of her betrayal, and I placed them right on top of her other stuff, making sure they would be the first thing she saw when she opened the box. Then, I taped the box shut and wrote in bold letters across the top, "Open me." That was going to be the first thing she saw when she returned. By the time I finished, the house felt empty. It no longer felt like ours. It was just mine now. She was coming back from Vegas tomorrow evening, and I wasn't planning on being there when she arrived. But before I left for good, I needed to see something first. A few hours before her flight landed, I moved all the boxes onto the front yard, placing the one with the photos right at the front, making sure it was the first thing she would see. Then I grabbed my bags and put them in my car. I parked it a few blocks away and rented a car for the day, one she wouldn't recognize. I wasn't just going to disappear without seeing her reaction. I wanted to watch as reality hit her. Once I had the rental, I drove back and parked across the street, far enough to not be noticed but close enough to see everything unfold. Not long after, my phone buzzed. "Hey baby, I just landed. Taking a taxi home now. Can't wait to see you," Natalie wrote. I smirked. She had no idea. I responded like nothing was wrong. "Okay, see you soon," I replied. And then, I waited. 15 minutes later, a yellow taxi pulled up in front of the house. Natalie stepped out, dragging her suitcase behind her. The moment her eyes landed on the boxes sitting on the front lawn, she froze. Even from my car, I could see the panic setting in. She hesitated for a moment, looking around as if trying to make sense of what was happening. Then, she dropped her suitcase and ran to the front door. She fumbled with her keys, trying to unlock it. When the door didn't budge, she tried again. And again. Then she started banging on the door, slamming her fists against it. "Kevin! Kevin, open the door!" she screamed. "Kevin, what the hell is going on? Open the door!" I sat back in my seat, watching silently. After a few moments of desperate knocking, she turned back to the yard. That's when she spotted the box at the front, the one labeled, "Open Me." I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly. Hesitantly, she bent down, ripped the tape off, and opened it. And then she saw the pictures. I watched as she pulled them out, flipping through them, her hands trembling. Her expression changed instantly, from confusion to horror. She fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the pictures, her entire body shaking. A broken sob escaped her lips, and she covered her mouth with her hand. She knew. She knew she was caught. I had seen enough. I got what I came for. Without another glance, I started the car, drove off to pick up my real one, and left town. I had booked a hotel in a different city, far enough away that she wouldn't be able to find me. That night, when I arrived at the hotel, my phone was flooded with calls and messages from Natalie. Nearly 40 missed calls and countless texts lit up my screen. "Kevin, please talk to me. Kevin, I'm sorry, I love you, please let me explain." But I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in her excuses. Now, it was time for step 2 of my plan. Let the world know exactly why our wedding was canceled. I forwarded the incriminating photos to her parents and all our mutual friends, everyone who was supposed to attend our wedding. Along with them, I attached a short message. "Natalie cheated on me in Vegas. Here's why the wedding is off. This is who she really is." Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with responses. Some were filled with shock and outrage. Others were messages of sympathy, people apologizing for my heartbreak. For a brief moment, guilt crept in. What I did was brutal. I cut her off, changed the locks, left her things outside, and then exposed her infidelity to everyone. But the part of me that had been shattered by her betrayal didn't care. I wanted the truth out there. I wanted everyone to know she wasn't the victim. A few weeks passed, and to my own surprise, I was happy. With time, I realized I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. Eventually, I sold the house too. There was no reason to hold on to something that no longer meant anything to me. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. No longer drowning in betrayal. No longer carrying the weight of what she had done. I had even started dating again. Not seriously, but enough to remind myself that there were still good women out there. women who understood what loyalty meant. One day I got a call from Eric, the same friend who had snapped the damning photos in Vegas. "Hey Kevin," he said, "how are you holding up?" "I'm good, Eric," I replied. "Really, I'm in a much better place now." "Glad to hear that, man," he said. "I'm sorry about how everything went down, but at least you know the truth." "Yeah, no regrets, Eric," I told him. "Thanks for everything you did. If it wasn't for your honesty, I might have ended up marrying someone who didn't value me." We talked for a while about life and work. I felt a surge of gratitude. Even though his news had destroyed my engagement, Eric's actions had saved me from a future built on lies. I would always be thankful for that. Then, one evening, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked over, opened it, and there she was. Natalie. She looked different, not the confident, put-together woman I once knew. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were swollen like she had been crying for days. She looked desperate. I crossed my arms. "How did you find me?" I asked coldly. She hesitated before admitting, "I hired a private investigator." My eyebrows shot up. "Seriously?" She nodded, shifting nervously. "I had to see you. I had to talk to you." I leaned against the doorframe. "About what?" "Kevin, why did you disappear?" she asked, her voice shaky. I let out a small laugh. Was she serious? "You know why," I said flatly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I made a mistake. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking." I cut her off with a bitter chuckle. "Save it, you knew exactly what you were doing." Her lip trembled. "I was scared, okay?" she cried. "Scared of commitment, of marriage. I got caught up in the moment." I scoffed. "Yeah? And how long did that moment last?" I asked. "A few hours? The whole night? The whole trip?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had no excuse. I shook my head. "You weren't scared of commitment, Natalie. You were selfish. You wanted the wedding, the ring, the future, but you didn't want the responsibility that came with it." She sniffled, wiping her face. "Kevin, I love you." I stared at her. She still didn't get it. "No, you don't," I said simply. "You loved the idea of me, the security, the wedding, but not me. If you did, you wouldn't have done this." Her hands clenched into fists. "I was drunk," she whispered. "I wasn't thinking straight." I let out a breath, shaking my head. Being drunk doesn't erase your commitments. It doesn't make you forget the person waiting for you at home. It just makes it easier to do what you already wanted to do. And by the way, you weren't drunk when you were kissing him by the pool, so cut the BS. She flinched like my words physically hit her. "I miss you," she whispered. I stayed silent. She took a step closer. Too close. "Can't we talk?" she begged. "Can't we fix this?" I took a step back. "No, Natalie, we're over. We've been over since the moment you kissed that guy." Her face crumbled. She knew I meant it. She let out a broken sob. "Please." I stared at her one last time. This was the woman I was going to marry, the woman I once thought I would spend my life with. And now, she was just a stranger to me. I gripped the door. "Don't bother me again." And then I shut it. I stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. No more knocking. No more pleading. Just silence. And for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. Thank you for watching. My name is Larry, and for a long time I believed I had the perfect love story. Rachel was everything I had ever wanted in a woman. Kind, intelligent, and full of life. Eventually we got married, and for the first few years, our relationship was everything I had hoped for. We traveled, made plans for the future, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. But then, things began to change. At first it was subtle, small shifts in her behavior that I brushed off as nothing. She became more distant, lost in her own world. The warmth that once filled our home began to fade, like a candle burning low. Our long conversations dwindled into nothing more than short, necessary exchanges. Then, I noticed her spending more and more time on her phone. She would laugh at messages, her eyes lighting up in a way they hadn't when she looked at me in a long time. When I asked what was so funny, she would wave it off with a vague answer or quickly change the subject. Then came the late nights out. At first it was an occasional dinner with friends. Then it became routine. She would dress up, more stunning than she ever did when we spent time together, and leave the house with nothing more than a casual, "I'll be back late." I didn't want to be the controlling husband. I wanted her to have her freedom, to enjoy time with her friends. But something felt off. One night Rachel didn't come home. I called her once, twice, 10 times, but she never picked up. My mind raced. Was she in trouble? Had she been in an accident? Hours passed. My stomach tightened with every unanswered call. The panic was unbearable. I couldn't sit there doing nothing, so I grabbed my keys and drove to the police station to file a missing persons report. That night felt endless. Every second dragged. I sat in the living room staring at the door, listening, waiting to hear the jingle of her keys, the familiar creak as it opened. But nothing. Then, just as the sun began to rise, the door opened. She walked in, like nothing had happened. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her makeup smudged. "Where the hell were you?" I asked, my voice laced with exhaustion and relief. "Why didn't you answer your phone? I thought something happened to you." She yawned, stretching as if she had just woken from a peaceful sleep. "Oh, my phone was on silent. I didn't see your calls." Before I could say anything else, her phone buzzed loudly. That was a lie. I stared at her, waiting for an explanation. She only sighed. "I stayed at a friend's place." "You're overreacting, Larry." "Which friend?" I asked, my voice firm. She wouldn't say. I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded the truth, but I was so relieved she was safe that I let it go. Not long after, another moment of suspicion hit me, one I couldn't ignore. One evening, Rachel sat on the couch laughing at something on her phone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "Who are you texting?" I asked casually. She tensed. "Just a friend." Then suddenly her phone started ringing. Without a word, she stood up and walked to the bedroom to answer the call. I sat there stunned. Several minutes passed before she came back out. "Why did you have to go inside to answer the call?" I asked, watching her carefully. She hesitated for a second before sighing. "It was my friend Melissa. She's going through a really bad breakup, and she just needed someone to talk to. I didn't want to put her on speaker or have her feel embarrassed while you were around." I exhaled, the tension in my chest loosening slightly. Any rational person would have seen the signs for what they were, but I trusted Rachel. I had so much faith in her that I turned a blind eye to the truth, making excuses for her. I told myself she wouldn't betray me. The next evening, as Rachel was getting ready to leave, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Rachel," I said, watching as she applied lipstick in the mirror, "we barely spend time together anymore. You're always going out at night. I miss you." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Larry, I'm just spending time with my friends. Can't I even do that now? I don't see the problem here." "But there is a problem," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though frustration was building. "I just feel like we're drifting apart. You're always on your phone, always out. It's like you don't want to be here anymore." Rachel slammed the lipstick down on the dresser and turned to face me, her expression cold. "Larry, I am allowed to have a life outside of this house. If I want to go out with my friends, I will. I don't need your permission." I clenched my jaw, swallowing back the anger rising in my throat. "I just want to know what's going on. You're distant. I feel like I don't even know you anymore." "God, you're so exhausting," she snapped, grabbing her purse. "I'm not doing this with you right now." And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For the next few days, the tension between us was unbearable. She continued going out, coming home late without an explanation. I stopped asking. I was tired of the fights, tired of feeling like I was the only one who cared about this marriage. Then, the message came. It was around noon when my phone buzzed. It was from Rebecca, a friend of mine and Rachel's. "Hey Larry, we need to talk. It's serious," she wrote. "What's going on?" I responded. "Can we meet tomorrow morning?" "I need to tell you in person," she added. That didn't sound good. "Okay, where?" "At the new cafe downtown, 10 a.m., she texted back. I agreed, then set my phone down, my mind racing. The next morning I arrived at the cafe early. I sat at a small table near the window, drumming my fingers against the wooden surface. My coffee sat untouched in front of me. Then Rebecca walked in. She looked hesitant as she approached, almost like she didn't want to be the one to tell me whatever she had to say. "Hey," she said, offering a small, tight-lipped smile. "Hey." I gestured to the seat across from me. "What's going on?" Rebecca sighed as she sat down, folding her hands on the table. Larry, I don't know how to say this, but you deserve to know. I exhaled sharply. Just say it. She hesitated, then met my eyes. I saw Rachel last night, at a bar. She wasn't alone. My stomach dropped. Who was she with? My voice was steady, but my hands clenched under the table. Rebecca bit her lip. A guy. I don't know who he was, but they were close, hugging, laughing, and then they kissed. Those words shattered me. You're sure? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca nodded. I wouldn't have come to you if I wasn't. I saw it with my own eyes, Larry. I'm so sorry. I ran a hand down my face, trying to process everything. Did she see you? No, Rebecca said. I left before she could. I stared at her, my mind spinning. I couldn't believe what she was telling me. Rachel, my wife, kissing another man in public like it was nothing. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel real. But deep down I knew Rebecca had no reason to lie. I swallowed hard, nodding. Thanks for telling me. Then I turned and left, my decision already made. Rachel was going out again tonight and I was going to follow her. That evening I went home and waited. When Rachel got ready, I pretended not to care, just like I always did. She didn't even bother making up an excuse anymore. She grabbed her purse, said a casual, "Don't wait up," and walked out the door. She left around 9 p.m. dressed to the nines. A tight dress, high heels, perfume so strong it lingered even after she was gone. I gave her a couple of minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed. She drove downtown, weaving through traffic like she had someplace important to be. I stayed a few cars back, keeping my headlights low. My heart pounded with every turn she took. Eventually, she pulled over on a dimly lit street. She parked and just sat there, phone in hand, waiting for someone. A few minutes later, a man arrived. Tall, broad shoulders, a confident stride. He walked straight to her car, opened the passenger door, and slid in like he belonged there. Then, they kissed. Not just a peck, not just a casual brush of lips. A deep, lingering kiss. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. My whole body tensed, frozen between rage and devastation. I felt sick, but I didn't look away. They sat there for a while, talking, laughing. She was glowing, the way she used to with me. Then, after a few minutes, she started the car again. I followed them as they drove across town, my heart hammering against my ribs. I already knew where this was going, but some foolish part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. They pulled into a hotel parking lot. One of those discreet hotels, the type people go to when they don't want to be seen. I parked across the street, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. I watched as they got out of the car, Rachel's arms wrapping around the man like she hadn't just left her husband at home. They hugged, laughed, whispered something to each other. Then, before heading inside, they kissed again. I took pictures of everything. My heart pounded as I stared at my phone screen. I knew something was wrong, but seeing it with my own eyes, it felt like a knife to the chest. Rachel, my wife, the woman I had loved for years, was cheating on me. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to. Instead, I turned my car around and drove home. I sat in the living room, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor as I waited. Hours passed. The clock on the wall ticked away, each second stretching painfully long. My mind replayed everything, every argument, every excuse, every lie. Finally, just past midnight, the front door opened. Rachel walked in casually, dropping her purse on the table like she hadn't just spent the night with another man. I took a deep breath. "Are you cheating on me?" Rachel froze for a fraction of a second before scoffing. "What are you talking about?" "I asked you a question, Rachel." She rolled her eyes, kicking off her heels. "You're insane. Have you lost your mind?" "Of course not." I didn't respond. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped the screen a few times. Then I turned it around and held it up for her to see. Rachel's face drained of color. On the screen were the photos, clear as day. Her and the man in her car, hugging, kissing outside the hotel. "No, huh?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "So what is this?" Rachel didn't speak. She stared at the phone, frozen in place. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she swallowed hard and looked away. Say it," I demanded. She exhaled sharply, then squared her shoulders, her lips curling into something almost like amusement. "You want the truth?" she said, her voice laced with something that almost sounded like annoyance. "Fine." She folded her arms. "I was feeling lonely, Larry. The spark between us is dead. I needed a real man, someone who makes me feel alive again." I felt those words hit me like a fist to the gut. She didn't deny it. She didn't regret it. She enjoyed it. I exhaled a laugh, short, bitter, humorless. "A real man?" I shook my head. "You mean the guy you've been sneaking around behind my back?" She didn't answer. I stood up, my voice steady but cold. "We're done, Rachel. Pack your things and get out." Rachel's eyes widened. "Wait, Larry. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then, without another argument, she turned and walked toward the bedroom. It took her an hour to pack. I didn't help. I didn't say another word. When she was done, she picked up her bags and paused at the door. "I didn't want it to end like this," she murmured. I didn't even look at her. "You should have thought about that before you walked out on our marriage." And with that, she left. The next morning, I filed for divorce. It was quick and straightforward. There was nothing left to fight for. I attached the photos to the paperwork, just in case she tried to contest it. Then, I sent those same photos to her parents. I didn't add a message. I didn't need to. I just wanted them to see who their daughter really was, and why our marriage was over. Months passed. At first, the silence in the house was unbearable. I wasn't used to coming home to an empty space. For 7 years, Rachel had been there. Whether things were good or bad, she was always there. Now there was nothing but quiet. Some nights I caught myself thinking about her, but those thoughts no longer carried the weight they once did. For a while, I focused on myself and started rebuilding my life. I picked up new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and even started working out more. The past still lingered, but I refused to let it control me. I wouldn't be the man who let a cheating wife destroy his life. The divorce process moved quickly. Rachel tried to argue for more, but the law was on my side. The house had always been mine. I had bought it before we were married. My finances were secure, protected long before I had ever considered marriage. In the end, she walked away with nothing. I didn't feel satisfaction, just closure. Rachel had betrayed me, but I had no interest in revenge. Sending the photos to her parents had been enough. They knew the truth now, and that was all that mattered. Then one day I heard a rumor. Rachel was in a new relationship with the same man she had cheated on me with. I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. Maybe in the past it would have hurt to hear that she had moved on so quickly, but now it didn't matter. She wasn't my problem anymore. Not long after, I found out that Rachel had cheated again, this time on the man she had betrayed me for. I almost laughed when I heard it. I wasn't surprised. Some people never change. I didn't bother finding out what happened next. Whether she stayed in another relationship, whether she spiraled, whether she regretted anything, it wasn't my concern. My only focus was moving forward. For the first time in a long time, I was looking toward the future, and this time I wasn't looking back. Thank you for watching.
I should have seen it coming, not because of some big argument or a dramatic shift. No, it was the small things, the kind of things you notice only when you're paying attention. The long pauses before she answered my questions, the way her phone never left her hand anymore, the silence at dinner, where once there had been mindless chatter about coworkers and weekend plans. I remember the night it really hit me. We were sitting on the couch. I was telling her about a busted pipe at work and how the building manager had nearly fainted from the flood. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. That's when I knew. She wasn't in the room with me anymore. Not really. We'd been married for 6 years. Betty and I had built a life, modest but steady. No fireworks, sure, but no fires either. I thought that meant we were solid. I was wrong. It was a Thursday night when she finally said it. I was standing in the bedroom, sorting through the mail on the dresser. Bills, mostly. Routine stuff. She walked in, stood in the doorway for a few seconds, then said, "We need to talk." I didn't sit down, just looked at her and waited. "I've been seeing someone," she said, eyes on the floor. I didn't mean for it to happen. I nodded once, slow. "Who?" She hesitated. "It's Alan." That name punched a hole straight through my memory. Alan, her old coworker, the guy who always commented on her Instagram posts with inside jokes, the one she swore was just funny and totally harmless. I kept my voice steady. How long? About 2 months. She looked up. We haven't slept together. But you plan to. She didn't answer, and that was enough. I sat down on the edge of the bed, hands resting on my knees. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. Just cold, like a switch flipped somewhere inside, and everything slowed down to a crawl. She took a step closer. I don't want a divorce, Roger. I'm confused. I care about you. I really do. I stared at her. You're standing in front of me, telling me you care, while thinking about another man. I didn't expect this to happen, she said, her voice tightening. Alan and he listens. He makes me feel seen. I didn't speak for a long moment, just stared past her, letting the silence settle. So, what do you want? I finally asked. She exhaled. Time. I need space to figure out what this means. For me. For us. I stood up. You're asking for permission to test drive someone else while keeping me in the garage. That's not what It's exactly what you're doing, I said quietly. She didn't argue, just stood there like a guilty child caught mid-lie. I walked out of the room, not a word, not because I didn't have something to say, but because I already knew she'd just given me all the answers I needed. She moved out the next morning, not with boxes or a moving truck, just one overnight bag and her favorite coat, the green one with the belt she always double-knotted. She didn't say where she was going, but I didn't need to ask. I knew it was Alan. She paused in the doorway before leaving. I was at the dining table drinking coffee, not looking at her. I don't know how long I'll be gone, she said. This isn't goodbye. It's just time apart. I didn't respond. She stood there for a second longer, like she expected a scene. Maybe tears, maybe begging. But all I gave her was the sound of the spoon clinking inside my mug. Then she walked out. I waited until I heard her car pull away before I stood up. The silence that followed didn't feel like peace. It felt like an echo, like the walls were adjusting to her absence in real time. I didn't call anyone, didn't text friends or post cryptic quotes online. I just started cleaning. The hallway mirror she insisted we hang, I took it down. Her aloe plant in the bathroom, tossed. I wasn't angry. I just wanted space that didn't remind me of her. By noon, I was at my desk opening a blank document titled Separation Planning. Not revenge, just preparation. That night, she sent a message. Hope your day was okay. I'll check in tomorrow. I stared at it for a minute, then typed, take your time. That was it. No questions. No, I miss you. No asking who she was with or what she was doing. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't a pause. She wanted to see if Alan could make her feel something I didn't. What she didn't know was that I wasn't going to wait around while she figured it out. She thought she had options, but she was already running out of time. The second week was when things got interesting. Betty started texting more, not daily check-ins anymore, full paragraphs. Just wanted to say I've been thinking about us a lot. It's strange being away. Alan's not what I expected. I miss talking to you. I read that one twice. I didn't reply right away. I waited until the next morning and answered with, I'm doing all right. Hope you're well. Short, neutral, measured. It rattled her. The messages started shifting. Less confident, more fragile. She started asking how I was sleeping, if the house felt different, if I'd changed anything. She even asked if I'd thought about therapy. Not for her, for us. It was like watching someone realize the lifeboat they jumped into was leaking. I started getting my paperwork in order. One of my coworkers, James, had gone through something similar last year. Quiet guy, sharp, told me he knew someone, a lawyer who handled things clean, quiet, no mess. Said hiring her was the smartest move he made. I took his word for it. I emailed Vanessa that night. By the next afternoon, I had a consultation booked. Betty didn't know. She was still treating this like a long commercial break, like she'd come back and we'd just reboot. She called me late one night from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. Her voice was soft, careful. Hey, it's me. Yeah, I figured. Just wanted to hear your voice. I didn't say anything. Alan and I aren't... She hesitated. It's not what I thought. He's still the same guy from before. Gets moody. Doesn't listen much. It's like I ran back into a memory and realized it wasn't real. Still, I didn't give her the relief she was fishing for. Well, I said, sometimes the past stays buried for a reason. She went quiet. I let the silence stretch. Do you think we could talk? In person? She finally asked. Maybe, I said, when the time's right. I hung up, because I wasn't done building yet. 3 weeks after she left, I was in Vanessa's office signing paperwork. She was professional, direct, no frills. She'd gone through the prenup, drafted a clean exit plan, and laid out every step like clockwork. No room for drama, no long back and forth, just a clear, quiet cut. After that, I went straight to the bank, opened a new account, shifted my paycheck, adjusted the bills that were still in both our names. Quiet moves, surgical. Meanwhile, Betty was spiraling. Her texts turned nostalgic. Remember that lake trip? When we got caught in the storm and stayed in that diner all night? I keep thinking about that. Another read. I've been journaling, trying to figure out what I really want. I think I made a mistake. Alan he's not you. And then the one that told me the panic had finally set in. Can we talk? I'd like to come by. No pressure. Just talk. Please. I gave her a day and responded. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Just a conversation. She showed up at 9:57. Same coat, different eyes, tired, defensive, hopeful. When she stepped inside, she looked around like she didn't recognize the place. I'd moved the furniture, painted the walls a shade lighter, even changed the lighting in the kitchen. You repainted, she said. Yeah. It looks different. Feels different. We sat across from each other. No wine, no hugs, just silence and space. She started talking, softly, rehearsed. I thought I needed to see what else was out there, but Alan wasn't it. He's still selfish, still thinks the world owes him something. I see that now. I listened, calm, steady. Then I stood up, went to the drawer, and came back with the folder. What's this? She asked. I slid it toward her. Clarity, in writing. She opened it. Divorce papers. Her hands shook a little. You're serious? I was serious the day you left, I said. You just didn't believe me. She stared at the papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. You don't have to do this, Betty said. We can work on it. I'm ready now. I get it. I didn't flinch. I'm not angry, Betty, but I'm not rebuilding something you walked away from. That's not how this works. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing the edge of the folder. I was lost. I made a stupid decision. I thought Alan could help me figure things out, but he just reminded me of why I left him the first time. That was the first time she said it out loud. Left him. Alan wasn't just some coworker. He was an ex, and she'd gone back to him like he was some unsolved mystery. Funny thing, she never told me that part. Not once in 6 years. Just called him a coworker. Just Alan from the office. I guess it was easier that way. I leaned back. So you went back to your ex? And while you were chasing that realization, I was here, wondering what the hell happened. I panicked, she said. I didn't know how to talk to you. You're so calm all the time, Roger. I didn't think you'd fight for us. That's the thing, I said. You took my silence as weakness, but it wasn't. It was patience, strategy. I wanted to see exactly who you were when you thought I wasn't watching. Her face tightened. So, this whole time, you've been planning to leave me? I've been planning to survive you. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked. Can we at least talk about counseling? One session. We owe it to everything we built. I stood up. You owed that before you left. She looked up at me, wide-eyed. You're really doing this? I already did. You just didn't see it. She sat there a while like she didn't know how to move. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and waited. She finally rose, clutching the folder to her chest like it might warm her. I guess this is it, she said. I nodded. For me, it was 3 weeks ago. This is just the paperwork. She stepped outside without looking back. No hug, no tears, just quiet footsteps on the pavement and the hollow sound of a car door closing. That was the last time Betty walked into my house. but it wouldn't be the last time I thought about how easily she walked out of it. It's been 2 months since she signed. No appeals, no late-night confessions, just a scanned copy from her lawyer, and silence. The house doesn't feel like a memory anymore. It feels like mine. I swapped out the bedspread, donated her reading chair to Goodwill, got rid of that old print she loved, the one of the city skyline she said reminded her of possibility. I always thought it looked like smog. I didn't announce anything, didn't change my relationship status or post about growth online. I just moved on, quietly, intentionally. Betty hasn't reached out since, not even a stray text, but she watches my stories sometimes. I see her name in the views. That's enough. I don't need her apology. I don't need her closure. The thing people don't talk about is how good it feels when you finally stop waiting to be chosen. When you choose yourself, and that's enough. I took a trip 2 weekends ago. Just drove north. No plan, no reservations. Found a small town with a quiet coffee shop and a bookstore next to it. Sat for hours. Read. Wrote a little. A woman named Clara struck up a conversation. She complimented the book I was reading. We talked about second chances and how people think healing is loud when it's actually pretty damn quiet. We exchanged phone numbers. Nothing heavy, no pressure, just a nice, honest moment. Driving home, I realized I hadn't thought about Betty all weekend. Not once. Not what she was doing. Not whether she regretted anything. She'd become background noise in a life that finally felt tuned right. This isn't revenge. It's not about winning. It's about waking up, making your own coffee, and not wondering when the door is going to slam. It's about knowing the version of yourself you rebuilt didn't come with conditions. And that, maybe, is the love story I was meant to write all along. Last Saturday I ran into her. Whole Foods frozen section. I was reaching for a bag of peas. She was grabbing oat milk. We both froze for a second. She looked smaller. Not physically, just dimmer. Like someone who hadn't slept well in a while. "Hey," she said, almost a whisper. "Hey." We stood there for a few seconds. Shoppers moved around us like we were statues. "You look good," she said finally. "Thanks. You too." It wasn't true, but I figured she needed it. There was a silence, not angry, not bitter, just tired. She glanced at my cart. "Cooking for someone?" I smiled. "Just myself." Betty nodded, like she didn't know what to do with that answer. "I keep thinking about that last morning," she said. "You were so calm. I thought you'd fall apart. Yell. Fight." I shrugged. "That's not how I fight." She laughed, the kind that ends in a sigh. "I see that now." A long pause followed. She shifted her weight, like she wanted to say something else, but didn't know how to start. "You happy?" she finally asked. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know. I just wanted the pause to mean something. "Yeah," I said. "I am." She smiled. Not sad, not bitter, just small. "That's good." We didn't hug. Didn't say let's catch up or maybe coffee sometime. We just nodded and walked in opposite directions. Later that night, I made pasta, played some Coltrane on the speaker, sat on the couch with my feet up, eating out of a bowl like a college kid. And I realized something. The version of me she left behind would have clung to that grocery store moment, would have replayed it, picked it apart, imagined alternate endings. But me? I didn't feel the need to do any of that. I just finished dinner, watched a movie, slept like a man who had nothing left to prove. Because the story didn't end in heartbreak. It ended in peace, and that's more than I ever thought I'd get. Thank you for watching.
My wife Jessica and I had been married for 4 years. We weren't newlyweds anymore, but I thought we had already gone through the tough parts, getting used to each other, making compromises. There was a time when Jessica would smile as soon as I walked into the room. We used to stay up late, talking about anything and everything. But now our conversations were short and unimportant. She wasn't angry. We didn't argue. But it was worse than that. She just didn't seem to care anymore. For the last few months, she had been going out with her friends every Friday night. At first, I didn't mind. She worked hard and deserved to have fun. But the more I thought about it, the more something bothered me. I didn't really like her friends. 2 were in a polygamous relationship, and the other 2 were divorced. I tried to push my worries aside, telling myself that just because their lives were messy, it didn't mean Jessica would make the same mistakes. I wanted to believe everything was fine, but no matter how much I tried to ignore it, something felt off. One Friday night, she left the house around 8 p.m., wearing a tight red dress I hadn't seen in years. The sight of her in it made my stomach tighten, not in admiration but in unease. Jessica used to dress like that for me, back when things were good, back when she actually cared about what I thought. But lately she barely acknowledged me. I had chalked it up to stress, but the nagging feeling in my gut told me otherwise. "You look nice," I said, forcing a small smile. She barely spared me a glance. "Thanks," she replied flatly, grabbing her purse and heading for the door. I watched her go, feeling the sting of indifference settle in my chest. It wasn't just tonight. It had been like this for months. No matter what I did, it was never enough. When I brought her flowers, she forced a smile and muttered, "That's nice." When I offered to take her to dinner, she would decline, saying she was too tired. Movie night? That was even more pointless. She would tell me I was only doing these things because she asked me to. But I was simply trying to bring us back to what we used to be. I worked so hard every day, trying to build the life she always talked about. The vacations, the dream house, the financial security. I thought I was doing the right thing, but somehow I was always the bad guy. I told myself not to overthink it. She would be back soon. I turned on the TV, flipping through channels without really watching. My phone sat in my hands, but I wasn't paying attention to the screen. Every few minutes I glanced at the clock. Midnight. She was always home by now, but for some reason she hadn't come home yet. By 1 a.m. I sent her a text. "Everything okay?" No response. By 2 a.m. I tried calling her instead. It rang twice before going to voicemail. I continued calling her, but there was no response. I wasn't just worried at that point. I was angry. Where the hell was she? It was almost 6 a.m. when I finally heard the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I stayed on the couch, the TV muted, pretending to scroll through my phone. The door creaked open and Jessica walked in, wearing different clothes. The red dress was gone. Instead, she wore a loose black tank top and leggings, clothes that weren't hers. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was a tangled mess. And then, there was the smell. A mix of sweat, perfume, alcohol, and something else. Something unmistakable. Musk. She ran a shaky hand through her hair and forced a casual smile. "Hey." I stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "You changed clothes?" She blinked, then looked down at herself as if just realizing. "Oh, yeah. I spilled a drink on my dress." She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then turned away too quickly, setting her purse down on the counter. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. She was lying. She busied herself digging through her bag as if looking for something. Then, as if suddenly remembering the time, she let out a dramatic yawn. "I'm exhausted. I'm gonna shower and crash." She turned toward the bedroom, but I wasn't done. "Jessica." She froze. Slowly, she turned back around. "What?" She stood in front of me, her expression flickering between defiance and something else. Something like guilt, but not quite. Maybe regret. Maybe shame. I took a slow step forward, my voice low and controlled. "Why didn't you text me, or call to let me know you'd be late, that you'd be out the whole night?" Jessica stiffened, her shoulders going rigid. "It was girls' night, Paul. Do I need to check in with you every 5 minutes?" I let out a humorless laugh. "It's called common courtesy and respect, Jessica." My voice rose slightly. "I've been sitting here all night wondering if something happened to you." I stood up, no longer pretending to be calm. "Plus, you left here in one outfit and came back in another. And you reek of—" I trailed off, disgust curling in my gut. I didn't even want to say it. Her face flushed, but she quickly covered it with a mask of arrogance, then anger. "Are you accusing me of something?" she snapped. "Because if you are, just say it." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Fine," I said, my voice sharp as a knife. "Did you sleep with someone else tonight?" Jessica's eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, something flickered in them. But then, she glanced away. That hesitation lasted only a second, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. She scoffed, shaking her head. "You're being ridiculous." "Am I? Your trust in me is so low that you immediately jump to that conclusion?" "Jessica, don't." My voice was hoarse. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me, reality twisting into something I didn't want to accept. Just tell me the truth. Don't make this worse. Silence. Her eyes darted around the room. She was barely holding herself together. Then finally she whispered, "It was just one time. It didn't mean anything." My body went still. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The blood rushed to my ears and my chest tightened. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. "What?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor, too afraid to look at me. I took a step back, dragging a hand over my mouth, my mind struggling to catch up. What the hell brought this on? My voice came out in a strangled whisper. "Why did you do this?" Nothing. No answer. No excuse. Just silence. I exhaled sharply, pacing, trying to stop the anger from boiling over. I was on the verge of losing control, of shouting, of throwing something, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I turned to look at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Say something," I demanded. She finally lifted her head. "I was lonely," she muttered. I let out a bitter laugh. "Lonely?" I repeated. I needed something. I needed to feel wanted." I stared at her like I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you went and found someone else?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. She could cry all she wanted. She wasn't the victim here. "You could have talked to me, Jessica. You could have said something." My voice shook with frustration. "But instead I cut myself off, shaking my head. "You chose this." That was it. I didn't care anymore. This ruined everything. I let out a slow breath and ran a hand down my face. "You know what? It doesn't matter." Jessica flinched like she already knew what was coming. "I can't do this anymore," I said. My voice was hollow now, empty. "We're done. I want a divorce." That statement seemed to break her. Her eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. "Wait, please." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "There's nothing left to wait for." She took a shaky step closer. I wasn't thinking straight. It was a mistake, I swear. I never meant for it to go this far." I exhaled sharply, my patience running thin. "Then why did you do it?" She hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "The girls told me it would teach you a lesson." I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "What?" "They said you'd start appreciating me more if you thought you could lose me. That maybe you'd finally pay attention." Her voice was shaking now. I thought I was doing it to save us." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "And you believed them? Well, you definitely got my attention now, just not in the way you thought." She looked at me desperately, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "Paul, I love you." She stepped forward, reaching for me, but I jerked away. "Don't," I warned, my voice sharp. "Don't touch me." Jessica sobbed openly now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no sadness, just anger and disappointment. I turned away from her and grabbed my jacket. "Where are you going?" she asked frantically. "Anywhere but here." "Please don't leave like this, we can fix this," she begged. I grabbed my keys and met her tearful gaze. "No, Jessica, I'm done." Then I walked out the door, got into my car, and drove away, leaving her standing on the porch, crying in the darkness. The moment I left, I knew there was no turning back. Jessica had broken something between us that could never be repaired. Her words kept replaying in my head as I drove aimlessly, trying to make sense of it all. They told me it would teach you a lesson. She hadn't just cheated, she had planned it. Deliberately, with the encouragement of her so-called friends. And what was the lesson? That I should grovel at her feet? That I should beg for her attention? That I should appreciate her more? I had worked my butt off trying to make her happy. I had sacrificed time, energy, and effort to build a life with her. And this was how she repaid me? The anger simmered beneath my skin like a slow-burning fire. I didn't want to go home. So I drove to a hotel, checked in, and locked the door behind me. I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind still trying to process everything. It didn't feel real, but exhaustion weighed me down, and eventually, sleep took over. I woke up to sunlight slipping through the curtains. My body ached from the tension of the night before. For a few seconds I forgot. Then it all came crashing back. I sat up and rubbed my face, exhaling slowly. I needed to talk to someone, so I called my best friend, Christopher, and told him to meet me at a cafe. "Damn, man, you don't look too good." I let out a humorless chuckle and sat down. "Yeah, I know." He didn't push, just waited. So I told him everything. By the time I finished, his hands were clenched around his mug. "Jessica did that? What is wrong with her?" I shook my head. "I don't even care anymore. I just want out." Christopher leaned back, exhaling sharply. "I know a guy, a damn good divorce lawyer. He helped my coworker when his wife tried to screw him over." He pulled out his phone, tapped a few things, then slid it across the table toward me. "Call him. He'll take care of you." I stared at the name on the screen. Divorce lawyer. I nodded and saved the contact. "Thanks, man." Christopher gave me a firm nod. "Anytime." The next morning, I called the lawyer Christopher had recommended. By the afternoon, I was already in his office starting the divorce process. When Jessica got served with the papers, she was relentless, sending texts, leaving voicemails, even showing up at my job like some kind of desperate, remorseful wife trying to win me back. I ignored her. At first it was, "Paul, please talk to me." Then it turned into, "I made a mistake. I'll do anything to fix this." And when I refused to respond, her desperation twisted into blame. "You were never there for me anyway. Maybe if you had been a better husband, this wouldn't have happened." That one made me laugh. Classic. First, she apologized. Then, when she realized I wasn't falling for her lies, she tried to make it my fault. That told me everything I needed to know. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing things. Mutual friends told me Jessica had completely fallen apart. She had confided in people about how her so-called friends had pushed her into it, how they convinced her I was neglecting her. The funniest part? Those same friends abandoned her the moment things went south. The divorced ones? The ones who cheered her on, saying, "Men always take their wives for granted until they think they're losing them." They stopped answering her calls. And the ones in a polygamous relationship? They started talking behind her back, calling her an idiot for throwing away a good marriage over some random fling. Jessica had ruined her own life for the entertainment of people who didn't even care about her. People warned me that I'd regret it. One day you'll wake up and wish you had given her another chance. That never happened. If anything, I felt lighter, freer. Because at the end of the day, I learned one simple truth. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever be forgiven. And Jessica had lost the one person who would have never betrayed her. Thank you for watching. My name is John, and for the longest time, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Sandra and I had been together for 8 years and everything seemed just right. We had a comfortable home, shared dreams, and a connection I believed was unbreakable. Everyone we knew admired us as a couple. The Melnicks are perfect, they would say, as if we were the gold standard for a happy marriage. But, as it turned out, love is not always enough to keep a marriage intact. It all started when Sandra began visiting her parents more often than usual. At first it seemed sweet, thoughtful even. She'd say, "John, I'm going to see my parents today. They've been feeling lonely." I'd smile and nod, thinking how lucky they were to have such a devoted daughter. Her parents lived a little outside the city, about a 30-minute drive away, so it made sense that she'd want to visit them often. But soon, these visits became a weekly occurrence, then twice a week, and before long, it felt like she was spending more time with them than with me. Sandra would leave the house in the late afternoon, come back around midnight, sometimes later, looking different. She'd be glowing, almost as if she'd stepped out of a spa or something. I noticed it. She'd come home happier than I'd seen her in years, humming to herself, a small smile playing on her lips. I remember one night when she came home unusually late. She walked in, kicked off her shoes, and plopped onto the couch beside me. "Had a good time with your parents?" I asked. She nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Mom's doing much better, and Dad's always got those silly jokes." "That's great," I said, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something in her smile didn't reach her eyes. Over time, I started noticing little inconsistencies. One evening, Sandra came home wearing a scarf, even though it wasn't cold outside. Another time, I found a strange scent on her jacket, something musky and distinctly masculine, not one of her usual floral perfumes. "Isn't this a new scent?" I asked, holding up the jacket. Sandra looked at it, then back at me, her expression calm but careful. Oh yes. Dad was showing me one of his new colognes. He's been trying out different ones lately. I nodded slowly, trying to push down the growing unease. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something didn't feel right. Then, there were the phone calls. Sandra would step out of the room to take them, her voice low, her tone soft. Once I caught the tail end of a conversation when I entered the room unexpectedly. "Okay, I'll see you soon," she whispered before hanging up. When she saw me, she jumped. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a friend from work," she replied, her voice a little too quick, too high-pitched. I wanted to press her, but I didn't. I let it slide. I wanted to trust her. A few weeks later, I finally gathered the courage to confront her. "Sandra, can we talk?" I asked one evening as we were having dinner. The air was filled with the scent of her homemade lasagna, but I could hardly taste it. My mind was too preoccupied. "Of course," she said, her fork pausing mid-air. "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, unsure how to begin. I didn't want to sound accusatory, but I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up any longer. "It's about your visits to your parents. You've been going more often lately, and I feel like something's off." She set her fork down gently, her face softening. "John, you're overthinking. My parents need me, and I enjoy spending time with them. It's nothing more than that." I took a deep breath, trying to choose my words carefully. "I get it, Sandra. I really do. I know your parents mean the world to you, and I love that you care so much for them. It's one of the things I admire about you." She smiled slightly, perhaps thinking the conversation was over, but I wasn't done. "It's just that," I continued, "we barely spend time together anymore. It feels like every night you're with them, and when you come home, you're too tired to even talk. I miss us, Sandra. I miss the nights we'd sit on the couch, just you and me, watching some silly show or talking about our day." Her smile faded, replaced by a look of frustration. "What do you want me to do, John? Stop visiting them? They've been needing me more lately. I can't just ignore them because you feel lonely." "I understand that," I said, my voice softening. "But I need you too, Sandra. We both need to find a balance." She sighed, still visibly frustrated. "You know my parents are my first priority, John. They need my help right now. Things will get back to normal eventually." Without waiting for my response, she stood up abruptly and headed toward the bedroom, leaving me sitting at the table staring at my untouched plate of food. The sound of the door closing behind her echoed through the silence of the room. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind wouldn't rest. Did I push her too much? Was I being unreasonable? I replayed our conversation over and over, wondering if I had been too demanding, too needy. Maybe I should have just been more supportive, given her the space she needed. 2 days later, Sandra was in the shower, getting ready for yet another visit to her parents. I was sitting on the bed checking my emails when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but something made me glance at the screen. It was a message from someone named Lucas. "Hey babe, can't wait for tonight. I missed you already," he wrote. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Babe? Lucas? Curiosity, dread, and disbelief mixed in my gut as I picked up the phone. My hands trembled as I unlocked it and opened the messaging app. The conversation with Lucas was right there, in plain sight. I started scrolling through their messages, my breath hitching with each word. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." "Me too, wish we didn't have to sneak around." "I'll tell John I'm going to my parents again. He doesn't suspect a thing." I could barely breathe. The time she claimed to be visiting her parents, she had been meeting this man. The warm, glowing happiness she brought home wasn't from spending time with her family. It was from him. She had been using her parents as an excuse to sneak behind my back. I couldn't believe it. Sandra was cheating on me. I quickly put the phone back on the nightstand and tried to steady my breathing. The shower stopped, and moments later, Sandra stepped out, towel wrapped around her. She glanced at me, her face neutral, unaware of what I had just uncovered. As she got dressed, she spoke casually. "I'll probably be home late again tonight. Mom's been feeling a bit down, and I want to be there for her." I swallowed hard. forcing my voice to remain calm. "Okay," I said, my tone even. "Give my greetings to your parents." She smiled faintly. "I will." I watched her finish getting ready, each movement now seeming foreign, like I was looking at a stranger. Inside, I was crumbling, but outwardly, I remained composed. As Sandra left the house, something inside me refused to sit still. I had to know the truth. I quickly grabbed my keys and followed her, keeping a safe distance so she wouldn't notice. My heart pounded with every turn she took, expecting her to head to some clandestine meeting with Lucas. But to my surprise, she drove straight to her parents' house. I parked a little down the street, my confusion growing. "What's going on?" She went inside, greeting her parents warmly at the door. I stayed in my car, watching, waiting for something, anything, out of the ordinary. An hour passed. There were no signs of anything unusual. The house was quiet, lights on in the living room, the silhouette of her parents occasionally passing by the windows. I waited another hour, still nothing. She was just there, in her parents' house, like she said she would be. Finally, after another 30-minute wait, with no unusual movements or unexpected visitors, I decided to head back home. The whole drive, my mind raced. Was I wrong? Was she really just visiting her parents? When I got home, I sat on the couch staring blankly at the wall, trying to make sense of what I had seen, or rather, what I hadn't seen. About an hour later, Sandra returned, just like she said she would. She looked tired but calm, dropping her purse on the table before heading to the bedroom. I watched her, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. She was supposed to meet Lucas. I saw the messages. So why did she stay at her parents' house all night? Doubt started creeping in. Could I be wrong? Am I overthinking everything? But the messages were there, clear as day. How can those messages not be true? Something wasn't adding up, and it gnawed at me. The pieces of the puzzle didn't fit, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still very wrong. The next day, Sandra was set to visit her parents again that night, but the doubt still lingered in my mind. What's really going on? I was still unsure, my mind swirling with the contradictions of her behavior and the messages I had seen. I had to know more, so when she wasn't around, I picked up my phone and called her parents' house. Her mother answered, and I put on my best calm voice, masking the storm of questions in my head. "Hi, Lauren, how are you?" I greeted her. "Oh, John, it's so good to hear from you. I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?" "I'm doing okay," I said, keeping it casual. "I would love to visit you both, but I've just been really busy with work lately. Things are hectic at the moment." "Oh, I understand," she replied warmly. "Work can be demanding, especially with the way things are these days." We made small talk for a bit, and then I casually brought up Sandra. "You know, Sandra has been visiting you a lot lately. I'm glad you two get to spend so much time together." Her mother chuckled. "Yes, she's been coming over quite often. Most of the time, just for an hour or two to check on us. But yesterday she stayed the whole night. We had a lovely time just talking and having dinner." I froze. My mind raced as I processed her words. An hour or two? When she'd been visiting them, she'd always been gone for 4 or 5 hours, I thought. I quickly composed myself, forcing my voice to remain steady. "That's great. I'm glad you two are so close. I know Sandra really enjoys spending time with you." Her mother went on, unaware of the whirlwind of thoughts in my head. "Oh, she does. We always have a lovely time. I'm happy to have her around." "Yeah, she's great," I replied, trying to act normal. "Well, I won't keep you. I just wanted to check in. Give my best to Jack." "I will, John. Take care of yourself." We hung up, and I sat there in stunned silence, the phone still in my hand. An hour or two? She's been gone for hours when she visits them. Where does she go for the rest of that time? My mind clicked into place. She wasn't spending hours at her parents' house. She was only there for a couple of hours at most. The rest of the time, those missing hours, she was somewhere else. Somewhere I hadn't known about. Then it hit me like a brick. She's been using her visits to her parents as a cover, a camouflage. She was going to her parents' house for a couple of hours, enough to seem like she was there, and then she'd leave to meet Lucas. The longer she stayed out, the more time she had to sneak away. The pieces fell into place. The messages, the lies, the missing hours. They all made sense now. She had been using her parents as a cover, pretending to visit them, while secretly sneaking behind my back to be with Lucas. I couldn't believe it. Sandra was cheating on me, and I had been blind to it for so long. If I hadn't insisted on finding the truth, I probably would have never learned what was happening because her lies were so well planned. That evening, as Sandra took a shower to get ready for her visit to her parents' house, I couldn't shake the thoughts of what I had just discovered. I knew I had to check her phone again. With a sense of urgency, I picked it up and unlocked it, my heart racing as I scanned through her messages, hoping for something new, something that might explain it all. And then I saw them. New messages from Lucas. "Hey babe, something unexpected came up and I won't be able to see you tonight. But I'll be free tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you again." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. That's why she stayed at her parents' house so long yesterday. She was supposed to meet Lucas, but something had happened to him, and he couldn't make it. So she spent all that extra time with her parents as an excuse, pretending everything was normal. As I sat there, a mix of anger and betrayal washed over me. But I knew I had to follow her again. I couldn't let this go. Tonight she was meeting with Lucas again, and I had to know the truth. When she finally left the house that night, I got into my car and followed her. I watched as she drove to her parents' house again. I stayed parked nearby, waiting for any sign of what she was doing. An hour passed, then another. I was starting to feel like I was chasing ghosts, but I had to stay patient. Finally, Sandra came out of the house and got into her car. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. I followed her again, trying to keep my distance. She drove to a bar downtown, and when she pulled up, I couldn't believe my eyes. Lucas was already there, standing outside waiting for her. I watched as they met, hugged and kissed. My stomach twisted. I pulled out my phone and began snapping pictures, capturing every moment. I couldn't let this moment slip away. This was the proof I needed. After about an hour, they finally got in Sandra's car together. They were laughing, their hands all over each other as they kissed once again. My heart sank further. I followed them as they drove and eventually stopped outside a house, probably Lucas's place. They got out of the car, arms around each other, kissing passionately in the front yard. I snapped more pictures, my hands shaking. This was it. They walked inside, still hugging, still lost in each other. I had it all now. Every picture, every moment. Proof that Sandra had been lying to me, betraying me for months. I could barely breathe as I sat there, the full weight of it crashing over me. Sandra was cheating on me, and I finally had the proof to show it. I drove back home, my mind swirling with a mix of anger and betrayal. The images were burned into my memory, and I knew I couldn't let Sandra get away with what she had done. She had lied to me, sneaked around behind my back, and betrayed our marriage. I wanted revenge. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, and I knew exactly how to do it. When she would visit her parents again, I'd go with her. I would expose her lies in front of the very people she had used as a cover. They deserved to know the truth too. Later that night, Sandra came home. I forced myself to act normal, pretending nothing had changed. She smiled at me, exhaustion on her face. "I'm going to take a quick shower," she said, walking past me. "Sure," I replied, keeping my tone casual. After her shower, she didn't say much. "I'm tired," she murmured as she slipped into bed, turning away from me. I watched her for a moment, feeling the storm brewing inside me, but keeping it contained. Finally, 2 days later, Sandra told me she was going to visit her parents again. This time I smiled and said, "You know, I haven't seen them in a while. I'll come with you." She seemed surprised but nodded. "Sure, I think they'd like that." We drove to her parents' house in silence, and I kept my emotions in check. When we arrived, her parents greeted us warmly, unaware of what was about to unfold. We had dinner together, chatting about ordinary things, but I could barely focus. My moment was coming, and I needed to stay calm. After dinner, we moved to the living room, and I decided it was time. "Lauren, Jack," I said, pulling out my phone, "there's something I need to show you." Sandra's eyes widened, a flicker of confusion and fear crossing her face. I connected my phone to the TV, taking a deep breath as the first image appeared on the screen, Sandra and Lucas hugging and kissing at the bar. The room went silent. Sandra gasped. "What is this?" she stammered, her voice shaking. I ignored her, flipping through the photos one by one. This is what Sandra has been doing while she claimed she was visiting you. After her visits, she was meeting with this man, I said, my voice cold and steady. She's been using you as an excuse to sneak around so she could leave home without raising my suspicion. But I found out. Her mother looked horrified. Sandra, is this real? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Her father's face was red with shock and anger. Sandra, explain this. What's going on? Sandra jumped up, her voice rising. John, what the hell are you doing? She shouted, her face pale. This isn't what it looks like. I stood up, glaring at her. Really, Sandra? Then what is it? You've been lying to me, lying to your parents, using them as a cover while you meet with Lucas. Her mother shook her head in disbelief. Sandra, how could you do this? We trusted you. John trusted you. The argument escalated. Sandra tried to defend herself, but the evidence was undeniable. I was just, she began, but I cut her off. No more lies, Sandra. This is who you really are. You've been betraying me for months and I have the proof right here. I pointed to the screen, the images of her and Lucas still glaring back at us. Her parents were devastated, and the tension in the room was suffocating. The web of lies Sandra had woven was unraveling, and there was no escape. Her father, eyes filled with anger and disappointment, stood up and said, I can't believe what you did, Sandra. We didn't raise you to be a slut. I'm ashamed of you. Sandra broke down, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please forgive me. But I had reached my breaking point. It's over, Sandra, I said firmly. I'm filing for divorce. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. John, please forgive me. I love you. It was a mistake, and I'll do anything to make it right. No, I can't forgive what you did to me. I'm done with you. My voice was resolute, leaving no room for negotiation. Without another word, I turned and left her parents' house. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on me as I drove back to our house. I packed a few clothes, grabbed my essentials, and checked into a nearby hotel. Sandra called me multiple times during that period, but I didn't answer. I couldn't bear to hear her voice or listen to her excuses. In the days that followed, I consulted a lawyer and initiated the divorce process. The pain was raw, but I knew it was the right decision. Sandra sent messages and left voicemails, but I stayed strong. I was done being deceived and hurt. In the end, the divorce was finalized. Sandra got the house, and I moved into a new apartment. I slowly began rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, but with time, the wounds started to heal. I learned to trust again, focusing on my future rather than the past. The experience left scars, but it also taught me the value of self-respect and the strength to walk away from someone who didn't value me. Sandra's betrayal had ended our marriage, but it didn't define my life. I moved forward, wiser and stronger, ready for a new chapter. Thank you for watching. I noticed the shift in Sandra a few months before the reunion ever came up. It was subtle at first, little things. She started spending longer hours at work, then longer nights on her phone after she got home. She'd smile at her screen, thumb flying across the keys, completely oblivious to me sitting right next to her. I figured it was harmless. Maybe a group chat with friends. Maybe stress relief after a rough quarter at the firm. We all need distractions sometimes, right? So I let it slide. Then she started mentioning the college reunion. Casual at first. It's been 10 years, Danny, she said one night while making dinner. Everyone's coming back. It'll be fun. I nodded. Sounds like it could be good to see some old faces. She smiled, but it wasn't for me. It was like her mind was already somewhere else. In the weeks that followed, the reunion became all she talked about. She bought new dresses, tried new hairstyles, spent weekends getting ready in ways she hadn't even bothered to for our anniversary last year. One night, sitting across from her at dinner, I said, "You're putting in some serious effort. Big night?" She laughed lightly. "I just want to look good. I haven't seen these people in years." I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. "You want me to come with you?" Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "It's mostly just college friends. You'd be bored." Bored. Like being around her was some kind of punishment. I tried not to take it personally. Maybe it was just nerves. excitement about the past. But deep down, a knot started tightening in my gut. Sandra wasn't preparing for a night of memories. She was preparing for something else, and I was just too blind to see it clearly yet. The night of the reunion, Sandra came downstairs looking like a woman ready to start a whole new life without me. She wore a tight navy dress I'd never seen before, heels high enough she could barely walk, and makeup done with more care than I'd seen in years. She looked incredible. But when I whistled low and said, "You're stunning," she didn't even smile. "Thanks," she said, adjusting her earrings in the mirror without glancing my way. I slid my hands into my pockets. "You sure you don't want me coming along?" Sandra hesitated a second too long. "It's really just old friends," she said, grabbing her clutch. "You'd be bored." I nodded, but inside something shifted. This wasn't nerves. This wasn't excitement. This was a woman who didn't want her husband anywhere near her plans. So when she breezed out the door, I waited a few minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed her. She drove across town to a bar I knew well. I stayed hidden, watching from across the street. Sandra spotted someone first. Her whole face lit up. David. An old friend from Sandra's college days. The guy who never left town but was always too busy to keep in touch. They hugged. Too close, too long. Then they sat at the bar, leaning in close, talking like no one else existed. I watched them laugh. I watched her touch his arm, play with her hair the way she hadn't done around me in months. After about an hour, they walked out to the parking lot. I followed quietly, staying low behind a row of cars. Under a flickering streetlight, David pulled her close and kissed her. Not a quick peck. A full, slow kiss like they had done it 100 times before. Practiced, familiar, easy. I lifted my phone with a steady hand and snapped a few pictures, forcing myself to stay calm. They pulled apart, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, and got into his car. I stayed hidden in the shadows, watching the red glow of his taillights disappear into the night. I should have felt shocked. I should have felt angry. But as I stood there, something heavier settled into my chest. This wasn't some sudden mistake. The way they moved around each other, comfortable, automatic, it was obvious. They had done this before. And all those late nights, all those work emergencies, all those times she came home smiling at her phone. Every excuse she fed me. Now it all made sense. I drove home slow that night. No music, no radio. Just the low hum of the engine and the picture of Sandra in David's arms burning into my mind. It was funny, in a sick kind of way. I had spent weeks wondering if I was just being paranoid, and 1 hour outside a bar gave me all the answers I needed. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were steady. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. The house looked the same when I walked inside. The porch light still on, her coat still hanging by the door. It should have hurt more. Instead, it just felt empty, like walking into a hotel room someone else had checked out of. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out my phone and stared at the pictures. It was all there, clear as day. Her smile when she saw him. How she leaned into him like she belonged there. The way she looked at him. Like I was already a memory she didn't care about. You can explain a lot of things away. A hug, a few texts, but not that kiss. I didn't need to confront her. I didn't need to yell. Sandra had already made her choice. She just hadn't bothered to tell me yet. The next morning, Sandra stumbled in just after dawn, barefoot, mascara smudged, hair tangled like she had been out all night, which she had. I watched her from the top of the stairs. She didn't even notice me standing there. She dropped her keys on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto the couch like nothing was wrong. I stared at her for a long minute, then turned and went back upstairs. The sight of her, careless, casual, used, didn't make me sad. It made me certain. This marriage wasn't broken. It was over. And now it was just a matter of finishing what she started. I didn't leave right away. That would have been too easy. Sandra deserved to wake up and realize slowly, painfully, what she'd thrown away. I spent the next few days putting my plan into motion. First, I found a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. A furnished place, No memories attached. Then I opened a new bank account and started moving my paycheck. Quiet. Careful. No sudden moves that might tip her off. Sandra kept floating through life like nothing had changed. Coming home late. Smiling at her phone. Still feeding me the same tired lies about work events and girls' nights. She had no idea I knew everything. I waited until she was comfortable, sipping her wine, scrolling through her phone between bites. Thought I saw someone who looked like David the other day, I said casually, spearing a piece of chicken. She froze for half a second. Tiny. Barely noticeable. But I caught it. David? She repeated, pretending to think. Haven't seen him in years. I wiped my mouth with a napkin, kept my tone easy. Wasn't he at the reunion? She shook her head quickly. No, he wasn't there. I smiled to myself. Right. Not there. Not pressed up against you in the parking lot a few days ago. I didn't push. I didn't accuse. I just nodded and changed the subject. Let her stay comfortable in her lies a little longer. That weekend, while she was out shopping, I packed the last of what I needed. Clothes, personal documents, the old photos I wanted to keep. Everything else? I left it behind. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was just a shell. The last thing I did before I left was take off my wedding ring and set it next to her half-finished glass of wine on the counter. A simple message. When Sandra came home, she would find the place half empty, my keys on the hook, and the ring waiting for her. Plain as day. No fight, no screaming. Just silence. And if she had even a shred of awareness left, she'd know exactly what that silence meant. Sandra came home that night like nothing was wrong. I watched from my car parked down the street. She got out, heels dangling from her fingers, purse slung over one shoulder, laughing at something on her phone. Still clueless. She stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind her. I gave it about 30 seconds. That's when the porch light flipped on again. The door flew open and she stumbled outside, looking around like maybe I was just hiding in the bushes, waiting to pop out and forgive her. Not tonight. Not ever. Her calls started almost immediately. First my phone, then my work phone, then my brother Christopher. I ignored every single one. I let her sit in that empty house, pacing from room to room, realizing with every step that the life she thought was waiting for her had packed up and left without a goodbye. Later, Christopher called me. You want me to deal with her? He asked, hearing the banging on his door. I'll handle it, I said. When I pulled up to his house, Sandra was standing there under the porch light, hugging herself like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes were red. Her mascara was a mess. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Danny, she said, voice breaking. Please, just talk to me. I stepped out of the car and stood there for a moment looking at her. You lied, I said simply. Over and over again. And the whole time you thought I'd never catch on. She shook her head frantically. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. You kissed him in a parking lot like a damn teenager. You got in his car and drove off into the night. That's not a mistake, Sandra. That's a choice. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you, she whispered. No, I said. You loved the fool who still believed in you. She reached out, grabbing at my jacket like she could physically hold on to something that was already gone. I pulled away. You lost, I said calmly. You just didn't realize it until now. Then I turned around, got back in my car, and left her standing there in the cold, exactly where she belonged. I drove across town to my new apartment. Second floor, quiet. A view of the city lights at night and no ghosts in the walls. The divorce papers went out the next morning. I didn't wait for a reaction. I didn't need one. Sandra tried calling, tried texting, tried showing up at Christopher's house again. The answer was always the same. Silence. The papers were simple. No fights over property, no arguments about money. I didn't want the house or the furniture. Let her have it all. I wanted distance. I wanted freedom. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mark, an old mutual friend who hadn't picked sides. You hear about Sandra? He asked. No, I said, keeping my voice flat. He hesitated. She's a mess. Not working, not going out. Word is she's barely getting out of bed. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Sandra had built the fire herself. All I did was let her burn. The signed divorce papers showed up in my mailbox 3 days later. No apology note tucked inside. No final plea. Just Sandra's shaky signature at the bottom of the page, like she could barely keep her hand steady long enough to finish her own ending. Final. Permanent. Friends asked if I was okay. Christopher kept checking in, waiting for me to break down. But the truth was simple. I wasn't mourning. I wasn't angry. I was lighter than I'd felt in years. Sandra, though, she stayed stuck. She stayed in the big house with the empty closets and the wine-stained carpet. She kept trying to date again, according to Mark, but none of it stuck. Maybe because no matter how many new faces she chased, she kept carrying the same regret around with her. You don't come back from burning the only bridge that ever mattered. And deep down, I think Sandra finally realized it. But by then, I was already too far away to hear her scream. Starting over was easier than I thought. The new place wasn't much. Old hardwood floors, a kitchen barely big enough for one person. But it was mine. No shared closets, no framed wedding photos staring at me from the walls, no tension thick enough to choke on. Just peace. I got a new job downtown, something smaller, less corporate. I also joined a gym and started running again. I filled my days with things that made me feel alive, not with things that made me feel like I was auditioning for someone's attention. The past faded faster than I expected. Every once in a while, Mark or Christopher would mention Sandra. She's still in the old house, Mark said once over drinks. Word is she's different. Looks older, like life hit her harder than she thought it would. I just nodded. Sandra had chosen the past over the future, chased old memories until they became her prison. I didn't need updates. I didn't need revenge. She was already living her consequences every day she woke up alone in a house built for two. Some nights, sitting on the small balcony outside my apartment, beer in hand, city lights blinking in the distance, I'd think about the man I used to be. The one who stayed up late waiting for her to come home. The one who believed love could survive anything if you just worked hard enough. I didn't hate him. He was just young, blind. You need to lose the wrong person to understand your own worth sometimes. Sandra's biggest mistake wasn't kissing David in that parking lot. It wasn't the lies or the texts or even walking out on everything we had built. Her biggest mistake was thinking I'd still be standing there when she decided to look back. But I wasn't. I was already too far gone. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't waiting for her to catch up. I was just living. Free. Clear. Done. Thank you for watching.